Hello, everybody, and welcome to League Night. We're back from summer vacation, ready to get the school year kicked off. Jamie Thomas in studio here, and I've got Matt Graham, as always.
What's up, Jamie? Your lights changed in the background right as you came on. It's pretty cool. I'm glad to be here.
I actually planned that. And we've got Josh Graham as well. You know we can't do a show without the Graham brothers.
That's right. I've always got something to say.
Oh, can't wait to hear it. And joining us for the first time, the rookie debut on League Night, Dion Arlen of, well, just disc golf fame. If you've been around, you know him. But right now, doing Stat Mando. How are you, Dion?
Hey, happy to be here, Jamie. Thanks for having me on.
All right, we got almost a full house today, 4 of a kind, full house with Ben, our producer, working the controls, and Ledgestone was this past weekend, 4 rounds at that event. There's some numerology stuff in here. I don't know. Let's get right to the recap. It's time to talk Ledgestone Open. Out in Peoria, Illinois, Dion, what is so special about this event?
Well, after a week of rest, the tour slides from Motor City to Chi-Town and the second consecutive event on the tour, led by TD Nate Heinold. We're talking about Ledgestone Open, an event always known for leading the pack in payouts, and this year was no exception. $125,000 purse was up for grabs this week as MPO and FPO players put in 4 grueling rounds. Putting that into perspective, the second richest event on tour this year was Heinold's other event, the Discraft Great Lakes Open, which had a purse of $86,000. Last year's event was cut short due to bad weather, and the disc golf gods gave back this year in a big way with great conditions and a record number of aces for the event.
Ooh, record number of aces.
First of all, richest event, and you said $125,000 payout. He gave away, or the event gave away, $150,000 to charity. I'm like, that's the richest event, really. It's incredible.
Yeah, wow. Big ups for the partnership with St. Jude, the Paul Macbeth Foundation. So many people benefit. Charities benefit, players benefit if they play well, and we saw some awesome FBO play out there in Peoria. Break it down for us, Matt.
Yeah, FPO was awesome. To set the stage, Kristen Tatar is back in the U.S., and she came out shooting the hot round -5 at Northwoods. Was the leader going into round 2 at Sunset Hills. That had to have felt good. Were you guys excited to see Kristen up there the first round like that?
100 emoji.
Yeah, 100 emoji.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think she's still battling an injury. But during round 2, Gannon shoots 4 better than Tatar to gain a 3-stroke lead. And Paige shoots the hot round of -9, moving her from 12th place to the lead card. By the completion of round 3, Pierce and Gannon were tied at -15 with a few strokes over 3rd and 4th place. Now, Pierce and Gannon start out the final round, as we're watching here, with multiple pars, bogeys, and birdies. But they're still tied up after hole 6 with a 2-stroke lead over Fakis and 4 over Tatar. I know she wasn't happy with her final round. She posted that in social media later. The next few holes did not bode well for Paige, and she found herself 3 back from Missy after the front 9. So 9 holes pass, Missy 3-stroke advantage. It should be noted that Tatar starts out the back 9 with a turkey and found herself only behind Missy by 1. That's through 12 holes. Tatar was there in the conversation. However, Missy ends up birdieing 3 of the final 6 holes, and the pace was more than could be surmounted by the field. I mean, this was a very solid win for Missy. How did you guys feel about the field of strength? There were so many players in contention, even Owen coming down to hole 17 to secure a solo second. This FPO field was intense. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it was a great field. Just 2 simple comments, just purely like from observation, not stats or anything else. But Missy had it on lock, like her driving. Just, there's pressure down there a little bit at the end, and just puring the fairways. Right? You could tell no second thoughts. And then the other player who finished in second, Owen, which we all recognize her as a strong putter. And I think if you look at the stats, right, like gained tee to green compared to gained to putting, it's exactly what you'd expect. It's amazing how much Owen is gaining in putting, and she just crushed it out there, and she continues to do so. It was fun to watch the whole field play.
She won the Masters Worlds out there, and then she came back and played on similar courses and performed at a very high level in the open field. Let's check in with Missy and see how her post-round interview went.
Joined here by Missy Gannon, the champion of the Ledgestone Open this year. It's been a long week of disc golf, and for you, a lot of other obligations. Saw a lot of emotion pouring out of you after you tapped in. Where's it coming from?
I feel like this is one that I've wanted for so long. It's actually one of the events I've come to the most since I started going on tour. So I don't know, I just always felt like this was one I could get, and to finally take it down is just I really respect this course, and I love playing here, and so just having those kind of low expectations and just focusing on every single shot is so important out here. So I just told myself, well, I barely could eat this morning, so that was one thing that I would not recommend, but I just told myself to breathe before every shot and even after every shot. So I just tried to stay calm and, not think about too much else other than my shots. I mean, to win.
So I just want to point out, I've heard her in an interview since the event saying that she came into this final round thinking to herself, is this going to be the round where I can't keep the pace and I'm going to fall off? I'm going to be that one player who does that. And I think that says something about how much she felt this event was. That's how big it was for her, ranking as her number one. So that was cool checking in with Missy there.
Well, certainly something to think about as well. I mean, after this event, now you have to say that we can't be surprised when Missy wins. I think that might have even been a fair criticism leading into this event. But the way she took that final round down, Missy Gannon gets her second Disc Golf Pro Tour victory. Let's kick it over to the MPO division. It's great to not have a co-champion. I don't want to deal with that weirdness on this show. We get to see a lot of great golf. Josh, take us through it.
Yep. So as we noted earlier, it's a 4-round event. Plenty of jostling on the leaderboard for the first 3 rounds. On the final round, though, we have Ricky Wysocki, Anthony Barella, Gannon Burr, and Matt Oram all on lead card, and even a few within striking distance on chase card, including Paul Macbeth. Anthony Barella, right? A true disc throwing talent. You're never quite sure what to expect, except to have your jaw drop a few times in the round. Here you see him, look at this, almost ringing it up. Really incredible. And then, of course, you have Gannon Burr, great season, showing us some of his incredible touch and obvious confidence. Look at that. You love the way the disc bounces in the bottom of the cage. And speaking of bouncing, look at Ricky on this one. He turned on the afterburners around hole 8 and really never looked back. Nobody else on the card, in my opinion, completely caved, but they just couldn't quite keep pace. I mean, you're seeing all these shots, still plenty of big putts, awesome throws, right, all around. I mean, look at this long putt on her elevated basket. That is not easy. And then I love it. You're going to see Matty O. Look at this jump. This just looks fun. Yes, in the squat.
Josh, you say afterburners, and I know Ricky's going to say blackout, but he gave himself enough of a lead, which this hole here, is this 16 or 15?
17.
Well, 17. This is 17.
Okay.
Right.
He ends up throwing what, like double OB or something?
Yeah. Macbeth, well, he gets to tap out. Macbeth made a late round charge, but not enough, right? I mean, nobody was chasing Ricky down. Look at his excitement, classic enthusiasm, tapping out. 3rd win on the tour this year. And I love it, right? Nate wants to hand him the trophy, but Ricky's got to dance the energy out, as is expected. But congrats to Ricky. Really a solid tournament, really a strong final round. Never really in doubt, especially going down the back 9. So let's hear what Ricky had to say as he was excited for his win.
I'm joined here on the green of 18 by the Ledgestone Open champion, Ricky Wysocki. Ricky, it's been a long week of disc golf, and I can see a sigh of relief coming out of you. How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great. It's kind of like was blackout mode there in the middle stretch. I got a lot of birdies, and I put the pressure on everybody else. And I feel like that's where I set myself apart. Is late in the round, the final day, I can make the shots happen and put myself in position to win. And I'm glad I did that. When you're in that mode, you got to capitalize and get as many birdies, make as many good shots as you can, because you go in and out of that throughout the tournament. And the longer you can stay in that blackout mode and make great shots, that's where you're going to set yourself apart. And I feel like I can consistently get in that mode. And I wish I knew the switch where I could do it every weekend, but I'm thankful I could do it this weekend. And it was a great building block for Des Moines in the next couple of tournaments coming up.
Well, speaking of the next couple of tournaments, we have the major back in Emporia, where you played pretty much blackout mode the entire final round in the same outfit. What does this mean for your confidence and your
That's
body
the switch.
going into that tournament?
Well, yeah, I think that for me, it's I'm not feeling super healthy, which is another accomplishment in itself. I think I pulled something in my back, so my shots were not coming out very clean, and I doinked a couple putts, pretty much gimme range for me. That was very frustrating, but I fought through it, and sometimes it felt like someone was stabbing me with a knife on when I was straddle putting. That's what it felt like. But no excuses. I came back, and my other parts of my game really made up for the fact that I missed those couple putts, and I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely, he's thankful for that.
The Rictionary strikes again. The blackout mode. Just PSA, blackout mode with the local folks at your course, not the same thing as Ricky's blackout mode, just in case anybody was confused on that
But
one.
it works for him. It works for him.
And he does it consistently.
Shot
He's just
lights
not
out.
sure how.
Dion, was back when you were on the tour, did Ricky have all these terms back then? The Rictionary is like new.
It's been great to see Ricky blossom as a player and a personality. When I was traveling around and Ricky was a rookie on the year, he barely talked at all. So it's
That's
fantastic to see him give interviews and really show his personality because he's a great guy. And I don't know, I think blackout mode bucket hat might be exactly the thing he needs.
Ooh, get a black. Yeah. Anyways, that's another conversation. I agree, though. Great.
Free marketing. Call up Ari. She'll get that made and ready for Worlds in time.
Probably.
All right, that's the Ledgestone Open. As always, it is a treat and a lot of entertainment on the weekend. But now you, the fans, are going to be treated to our favorite segment, 2 minutes. Let's get into it.
We'll see you later, Dion.
Dion,
Peace.
sit this one. We'll be back with you. Yeah, see? Gosh, can't do this job right. But we can do 2 minutes right. I've got the Graham brothers,
yeah.
brother against brother, the battle everybody has wanted to see. And we have 4 great topics. So let's get into it. Nico Lacastro's suspension was handed down by the PDGA Disciplinary Committee. He gets 9 months of suspension from all PDGA events, 15 months probation after that. Is it too long, too short? What say you, Matt Graham?
All right. First of all, I like how Ben started the clock early. I do that to everybody. So it's only fair that it's done to me.
Right.
Here's the deal. I feel like the PDGA needed to make a statement due to where we're at in the history of the sport. It's kind of a pivotal moment in the tour's history. It's getting noticed and recognized in a fairly large way at this point. And that's not the look you really want to allow a player to do that in the live feed. I've seen social media relating it to the malice at the palace, saying the worst offenders there didn't even get penalized as much as Nico. I mean, that's an interesting stat, but I don't think that if you had that happen at that point in the history of the sport, meaning if basketball was in its 4th year of the large event, if that happens, that's going to be a black eye for sure. Where it was at, it worked out. But I don't think that can happen in disc golf. For me to say personally what his discipline should be is not my place. But if I was issuing discipline as a member of the PDGA, I feel like 3 to 6 months seems right.
Yeah. So, Class A offense, quote, generally involve actual harm to other players. And the word intimidation is also used, right? Class A offenses carry a standard penalty of 24 months and 12 months probation, which is 3 years. They gave Nico 9 months suspension, 15 months probation, which is 2 years. And they do consider things like cooperation, right, and genuine remorse. And I know, because I'm on the show, we're going to talk about this a little more later, so I'm going to be precise now. 2 things. First of all, I have no idea what factors the PDGA are using to make their assessment. So practically speaking, I have no idea if they went too soft or too hard. That frustrates me. But secondly, given what I saw on the live broadcast alone and my interpretation of his apology and the current state of the professional scene, I feel it's a bit too much, probably more in line with Matt. But honestly, that opens up a whole can of worms. I'll finish with this. I'm not upset about it, but I'd like more transparency and some evolution in how this is handled.
I just feel like the PDGA had to make the statement. I'm glad they didn't throw the full book at him.
It's very interesting. We will get more into this topic later, especially because that does carry his punishment over into the 2023 season. Speaking of the 2023 season, the Champions Cup, slated to return as a major for the 2nd year running. It was going to move up to Michigan. It's now going to stay at the International Disc Golf Center, which likely means we can keep it in the spring, which is what everybody's been asking for. Josh, do you love this move or do you hate it?
Yeah, so first I'm going to comment on it. So Champions Cup, right? Look, we were all excited when the new major was announced, right? We're really wanting to see those things solidify, make sure there's enough on the calendar. And then it was announced with some weird format, included, right? Then the PDGA listened and kind of evolved. Secondly, everyone loves the course there, but then it was set to go somewhere else. Then the PDGA just changed and now it's keeping it there. So honestly, for that reason alone, I'm like, yes, 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 like listening, right? And kind of adapting to that. So that there's kind of an underlying thing happening here, which I love. Now, specific to this, I hope they see all the other feedback and continue to evolve. I love the idea of Champions Cup. The players love the course, which means I like the course. Now that they have a more secure commitment, hopefully they can invest in some of the other areas. The biggest complaints I heard was on-course amenities and experiences, and that is becoming a big thing on the tour because we're solidifying the professional level of the competition, media coverage, on-course venues, I think matter. Matt, I don't know. Is there much of a debate here? I'm curious your take.
Not a debate. I would like to say I think they're trying to have it here permanently, but the commitment right now is at least for this year because the IDGC actually leases this property, and so they're trying to get that long-term commitment further than 2. I would love to see that because here's the deal, and I think this is what we're agreeing on. We've talked about it before on the show. The way the drama and the storylines build with an event that stays at the same location is very different than one that doesn't. Worlds is unique. It's a world title. We're okay to see that. But an event that builds a legacy and a history behind it, think of USDGC Hole 17. And I know everybody that's aware of this course comes to their mind. You know, when the player steps up there, the history of what's happened there. There's a lot of names I could say that have ruined their rounds or have won their rounds there. And that's because it happens there every year. So with that in mind, I'm happy to see it there. I think the Champions Cup being there and repeating itself is something that's to be celebrated at this point.
Yeah, I'm just going to cement that last point I like that you made. Next year, we're going to be able to look back and see how it evolved, and it will create some hype.
Exactly.
Conversation for another time. You wonder if a moving major will ever catch any traction because people like to be able to compare year over year. And year over year, well, over year, that's what Ricky Wysocki's done. He's now won 3 Ledgestones in 3 consecutive starts. And he is now the first player in MPO to reach 3 wins in the 2022 touring season. Ricky Wysocki has also taken over the #1 spot on the Pro Tour rankings. So, Matt, is Ricky Wysocki the #1 player in the world right now?
All right, so here's the deal. I know the question has to be asked because Ricky just set the bar, right? This season, most winning 3 and 3 at this point before anybody else. But I don't really like the question. And maybe it's because personally, I don't feel like he is the best. So the question, I can answer it that way and just say no. But my question would be to him, does he feel like he's the best? Now, he's a competitor. He probably wants to default and say, yes, I am for his mental sake. But I don't feel like he believes he's been playing the best. He got 3 wins at this point in the season, but I don't think he even feels that way. Wins obviously matter. And the recent stat, for instance, that Macbeth has not won in his past 12 events is big, and that's a career record for him in the wrong direction. I don't think Paul is the best either. I honestly feel like if we're going to talk about who's the best, I'm going to throw a name out there.
Do it.
Is it Eagle? The problem I have right now is that we don't have enough data for this season. But if Eagle wins World, this might sound dumb because he wins the Worlds, but would we all agree that he's the best in the world if he wins Worlds?
Josh?
Well, yeah, if we want to go around with ifs, well, if this and if that, Matt, I don't know if that counts or qualifies. But look, here's the thing. It's hard to argue against Rick being 1 right now. And I'm not one to steer away from hard things, so I'm tempted to debate it. But in this case, I'm going to take the easy way out. And I have to say, yes, I agree at this point in time. Look, there's a handful of guaranteed top tier competitors. But then when you sit them in a circle and you look at them and say, who do you have to give the nod to right now? I feel like it's Ricky. He's the only player with 3 wins on the season. Confidence seems strong. Now, Matt, to your point, for example, Ricky, out of 12 events this year, he's only finished outside the top 10 3 times. You compare the same stat to Macbeth, for example, he's only finished outside the top 10 2 times, but he only has 1 win. But listen to this. One argument for somebody like Macbeth is actually recency bias, believe it or not. If you only scrunch the last month, Paul has finished on average 4 places above Ricky, but he has no wins. So I still give the nod to Ricky.
But if you put Eagle up against Ricky, you're telling me right now you pick Ricky in a bet on who wins the round.
Well, yes.
Wow. Okay, we disagree.
All right. Well, we're going to have some bets to be taken before the World Championships because that's the next time you'll see Eagle McMahon. And what we saw on the course this past weekend, well, we saw a couple of courses for each division at Ledgestone. Let me give you some stats. The easiest round that we saw for the MPO division played about a stroke under par on average. That was the 4th round at the Lake Eureka course. By contrast, the hardest round at what some call the hardest course on tour was about 3.25 strokes over par on average at Northwood. So when you're looking at about a 4-stroke differential between the two courses featured for MPO, I've got to ask you, Josh, what do you like better as a spectator? Do you like the scoring or do you like the struggle?
Yeah, so I often let players' perspective influence me significantly on any of these topics because I've said this many times. I watch the sport to see this spectacular performances and great battles between the best our sport has to offer. They're the ones there on the ground experiencing it, and so what they say matters. But in this case, you asked as a spectator, and I like to watch, how do I like to watch it, right, as a fan or spectator? And if you force me to pick between the two, I personally prefer more scoreable courses where the shots themselves are not necessarily the most incredibly challenging, but it's more about seeing who can be overall consistent and actually who falters first. Look, I've watched tournaments where coming down the wire, you see, let's say the top 2 duking it out, park job after park job after park job, and the pressure is elevating who's going to make the first mistake. And I actually think that has a really intriguing interest. Look, so that's what I would pick. In a perfect reality, I think having a variety on the tour is quite intriguing. And so I'll finish with this because seeing players struggle on Northwood's Black the last few years actually opened my eyes to kind of a different type of game and seeing different player reactions. And so I think it's cool, but please don't start replicating Northwood Black across the country.
All right, I see how it is. Ben gives you extra time, takes time for me. Here we go. I'll get it out. While I can enjoy either type of round, my take that you asked, as a fan, I prefer to see the scoring, getting the birdies back after back. Who's going to make the mistake first in that sense? And you could say, well, Matt, that happens in a struggle round too. They're struggling. Who's going to make the least amount of mistakes? But I think it's really neat to watch a player be hyped surrounding the continual scoring and birdies. And can you keep up with this pace? And the player does. And you say, man, everybody's just scoring. Who's going to make the first mistake? To me, that's how I feel. Which would you get sick of quicker? You could kind of flip the question. And I feel like I'd get sick of the struggle quicker. Man, I'm watching people hit trees all day trying not to score, bogeys. So to me, I'd love to see the scoring. That's my preference.
Yeah, and it was very interesting as my wife and I were watching the European Open a few weeks ago, and we saw the first time the women played the same course as the men. She kind of had that same eye-opening revelation. She goes, oh, you know what? They're not playing worse, but they're scoring worse, and it feels like they're playing. So yeah. Interesting to think about. Tell us in the comments below, what do you like to see, the scoring or the struggle? Let us know. We always appreciate you tuning in. That's 2 minutes for the day. We've got more discussion to come. We're going to bring Dion back in and do a little segment called Buy or Sell.
What's up, Dion?
Hey, good to be back.
Are you rested? Are you ready for this?
Phew, that break was just what I needed.
All right, we're going to get into the Buy or Sell segment powered by Statmando, where we're going to look at a dozen players. We got a full dozen for you today. And just these guys right here are going to tell us whether they would buy or sell the stock with only one event left before the always revered World Championships. Ladies first, as always, let's kick it off with Valerie Mandujano. She's got 2 Disc Golf Pro Tour wins this season. She's been right around that top 5, always in the top 4 in the Pro Tour standings. Let's start with Dion. Are you buying or selling Mandujano stock?
This was a tough decision for me to make. I ended up going with sell only because I saw that 3 of her 4 worst finishes came at longer golf course type events this year. So I think she's one of the most exciting players, one of the most in control players, sort of a breakout star for the 2022 season, but I don't think she's quite ready for a world title, so I'm going to sell.
And to be clear, I'm going to piggyback and say yes. And I think it's for the same reasons. There's a handful of players. It's just not setting up for their worlds. But I agree. Sell on Valerie.
So I buy because she had such a great start. She's been quiet since. I think she's faded in people's minds. So right now is when you buy because she can go back up.
There's a different mindset there for sure.
People were talking about her being like 2 or 3, like ranked, right? And now I think people are like, maybe she's 5 or 6. So, right, that's the dip. Buy now.
Very interesting because one of her wins did come on one of the longer courses of the year, despite the trends that you're talking about, Dion. So Valerie Mandujano, we've got 2 sells and a buy. Let's move on. Kristin Tattar, the talk of the town, returning to the tour. Well, why? Because she's got 14 straight podiums anytime her feet are standing on U.S. soil. And oh, by the way, she doesn't do too bad in Europe either. Josh Graham, buy or sell on Tatar?
All right. Oh man, I'm so tempted to sell, but here's why: because she's might be the current number one in my mind. And so, like, where else can you go from here? Because if we're playing a buy-sell game, it's
A
like
world
she's already
champion.
at the top, right? But Matt, so here's the point. I agree. So I'm a buy, and the only reason I think anybody can say or that Kristen is a buy is if you actually are picking her to win Worlds. Because to me, if she wins Worlds, clearly she's going up. And so I am buying, and that's because I think she is our current best pick to win the World Championship.
I don't know if I'm ready to pick her for winning the Worlds, but I'm close. I am buying on Kristen. I'm close to saying she's the one.
All right, Dion.
Yeah, she's one of the top players in the world right now, if not the top. I agree with Josh. So I'm going to buy for Kristen, and that might be where I put my money down this week.
Yeah,
That's
and
crazy
if you
though, right? Because she's already valued so high, and we just said 3 buys. So
Yes,
we've got a
but
lot of confidence in Kristen.
look at her performance this year at DDO, and didn't she win? Yeah. So I feel like
Yes.
we're going
Yeah.
back. So I mean,
Wow.
it's
we all agree in the end. I'm just saying it's
all right.
intriguing.
Tatar
I
on that
agree.
blue chip stock status, and worth noting that she has come back over from Europe both 2 consecutive years now. And what happened at World, she was disappointed because it was her first tournament back. She's got a nice lead up into that. So remember what happened last year, and forget what happened last year with Owen Scoggins, who we're going to talk about, because this year it's like we didn't know she could go to this next new level. Owen Scoggins playing incredible. Statmando, first in the power rankings over there. Dion, lead us off and talk about this. Are you buy or selling on Owen?
Yeah, I mean, she has got to be the most fun player to watch in the world right now. She is lights out on the green and just has the most fun on the course in the FPO division. After 3 straight second place finishes on the Pro Tour, you might think I'm a buy, and she's number 1 in the power rankings for that reason, but I am going to sell purely for the reason that Emporia does not suit her game. It's a long course, it's a windy course, and she doesn't quite have the distance off the tee to be competitive in the FPO field, but I hope I'm wrong, because it would be an absolute miracle storyline to see her win both the 40 over and world title in FPO in the same year.
Well, you can't hope you're wrong on this and hope you're right on the other. You're not going to get all of these. I mean, you got to pick one here. All right. But here's the deal for me with Owen. I'm saying sell as well. If we were talking the season, if we're buying or selling, I feel like she's a buy and keep her and just keep your investment growing. I feel like you said Emporia. I agree. It's not going to be her year there. She's going to perform well, but not well enough.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm the biggest fan of Owen, but we're saying buy or sell, right? Given out where we're at in the season, this is like chasing the price of like Bitcoin, right? It's like, oh, I only wish I had bought like 5 months ago.
Right.
Owen's having an incredible season, and given that point, with that perspective, I say sell because she's done so well. She's so high right now. It's awesome for her, but it's hard to argue a buy. Like she's already at a peak. For the same reasons you all said, I'm selling on Owen.
Oh, Owen Scoggins. What else does she have to do to get some love? She's the press conference GOAT. I'm gonna buy all press conference Owen Scoggins stock.
I don't see her
Return.
value going down. I just don't see Worlds as being her buy. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Well argued there, Matt. Let's go right back to you. We've got our reigning world champion, Katrina Allen, is next up. What do you say? Buy or sell?
Absolute buy. She is not performing to her full abilities for the recent history here of the tour. And I think this course and this venue, this property, she's played really well. She's always in contention. I say buy on Katrina.
Yeah, I buy. And I just simply had a note that says due to her experience. I think that is huge at majors and maybe even more so at Worlds. And she has a lot of experience, even calling back to last year alone. So
I hate to say it, but getting the monkey off her back, getting that second title is a big deal. I don't think she has that same pressure.
Yep, it's different.
Dion.
Yeah, this segment might reveal why I've lost all my money on stocks multiple times, because I'm going to sell on Katrina. And
Right.
I hate to do it. She has the experience, she has the maturity, and she has the distance for Emporia. I just don't think she's peaking at this point in her season. Check back with me Q4. Let's see how her stock's doing.
All right. We'll wait for that earnings call to come in and see if those extra royalties are coming in as well. How about last weekend's champion? Missy Gannon seems like she's usually peaking towards the later half of the season. We have a later world championships this year. Josh Graham, what do you say?
Yeah, so Missy confuses me, and you can go back on our show here, and I have some takes that have already proven wrong. And truly, this last win, I think maybe has won me over. And you already said it kind of in your intro. My simple note says I'm buying Missy. I kind of throw my hands up and say, hey, it's just due to her late year performance. And it seems like maybe she's going to do the same thing she did last year. So I'm going to buy.
Man, I don't know. I'm kind of stuck for the same reasons as you. I just feel like I think I'm won over that she has the skills and ability to do it. And she's going to prove me wrong. I almost feel that way, like for sure, but I'm selling on her. I don't feel like this is Worlds specifically. I have to keep clarifying that. Emporia, even she is saying this is not, she's not even that excited to go play Worlds here. She's going to try her best, but I'm selling on Missy for Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I have her. She struggled in DDO earlier this year, but what I saw from her in the win in Ledgestone was a new tier of maturity and capability of winning. And when she's locked in, I don't know if there's a better player tee to green. She gets to the green and she makes those putts. And if you're going to throw straight and hit spin putts, Emporia is the place to do it. So I'm actually buying Missy for Worlds.
Wow. Okay.
All right. And, to be fair, the prompt is just buy or sell at this point in time. So, Dion, you may have gotten a steal of a buy there because she's going into the Des Moines Challenge as the defending champion. So good vibes. Matt, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just feel like I thought this segment was set up around Worlds. If we're talking Des Moines, I actually might pick her to win it. So, I mean, her value might go up is your point. I get it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm still selling on it for Worlds.
All right, Missy Gannon confuses the Graham brothers. That's the headline for here. Now we have to get to the woman herself, Paige Pierce, your 5-time world champion, denied her 6th world title by Katrina Allen last year with all the hype, the documentary crew, everything. Nevertheless, she's still the winningest woman of all time when it comes to major count. So Paige Pierce, start with Dion. Are you buying or selling?
Yeah, this would be the most foolish sell in history. Paige Pierce is a champion, and she's gunning for that 6-time world title, and she's in fact racing Paul Macbeth for that claim. So between those two, anything is possible. I'm buying.
Oh man, well my note, so I have my own note, and Dion just said it'd be the most foolish thing ever, and here I go. Thank you for setting me up. Now I know I'm allowed to change my mind. Here's the point. I actually agree with everything. But I already earlier said I'm picking Kristen to win Worlds, and I'm not counting Des Moines in this particular debate. So for that reason alone, here's the point. It is expected Paige to win, and I'm saying she's going to be on the podium, and Kristen's going to edge her out. And for that reason alone, I say I sell on Paige. But it is a slim, slim margin.
All right. I don't have it as slim. Again, I think I'm finally grasping this segment. This is pre-World is what we're doing, is the value there. And I think I'm selling on Paige. She's had an interesting season. I'm not saying, I know we always talk, she's not washed up. I'm not saying that, but man, now I'm talking about Paige a little bit here. Her ups and downs during a round. I want her to, she's so mature as a player, but I want her to have that maturity to not have to be as aggressive and play the right plays at the right times. I'm not the pro. She is. I'm going to sell on Paige going into Worlds.
I'll make this point real quick, Jamie. She was distracted last year, had a lot on her plate, and I think her performance challenges at any event this year have come from how much she is giving back into the sport and how busy she is a person. But come Worlds time, I think she's learned her lesson and she's going to lock in, and it's going to be a Kristen Paige battle.
Ooh, could very well be. We saw a Paige Evelina battle at the previous major, so you always got to give the slight edge to the most winningest major player of all time. Great buy sell there for FPO. As always, in the comments below, put your buy and sell, and hell, tell us your World's favorites as well. We're basically there. No disrespect to Des Moines. We're going to enjoy it, but it's the preview to Worlds. So let's talk MPO. Here's a half dozen. We talked about Paige. Let's talk about Paul. Racing Paige for that 17th major title. 5 of Paul's 16 do come at the World Championships. Matt Graham, what are you doing?
Buying. We just saw an article go out on the interwebs there, and it says that the last 12 events he has, and they phrased it lost, meaning he hasn't won. And I feel like now that's a record for him, but he always shows up at Worlds. He got it taken from him. I wouldn't say slighted, but Conrad throwing in for the best shot ever in the history of maybe sports. I just feel like the interesting thing is here, I say buy and I'm rooting for him, but didn't Paul have his worst ever finish at DDO this year, like 50 something. I don't see that
51st.
happening again.
First
I
time
don't see
missing
that
the cut
happening
in
again.
his career.
Yeah, I don't see that happening again. I think that was an anomaly. So I am buying on him. He doesn't have it. The value's not there, but he's going to get it for Worlds.
So Matt's deciding buy or sell on Paul because he finished 51st. And it's like, yeah, we all think he'll do better than 51st place.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm also buying.
And better than not winning the last 12. I mean, his value right now is low.
I'm thinking of this as actual like stock buying. And I think he's underperforming this year, which quite frankly is crazy because I think he still has some pretty darn good stats, a lot of second places, etc. And I think he's hungry for another world title, obviously. And I think I can eke out a little profit by buying. So that's the point. He's already a big time expensive stock, but I think there's just a little bit more.
Yeah, there's only a few sports personalities in sports I can imagine more dangerous than Paul with a chip on his shoulder, and that's Jordan with the flu and Brady with a deflated football. Other than that, Paul with something to prove is the strongest competitor I know, and I'm buying.
Yeah, and everybody's pumping out articles and saying how he's the longest losing streak and all, Ricky's number one and whatever.
Josh and I grew up with Tom Brady, right? And you had to throw that one out there. We'll get you back later. I'm on the buy for Macbeth still, and still there.
Hey, bulletin board material is always dangerous, as you're saying, Dion. Okay, how about this guy? This is a fun stock to pick. We're gonna talk Simon Lizotte from the couch, holding his newborn son to 2 wins in a row on the Pro Tour. We're all dads here. I can't even imagine doing that, even if I was half as talented as Simon Lizotte. Is he a buy or sell? Could he be our first European world champion? Josh, take us.
Yeah, this one's intriguing because I don't know where I'm using all these synonyms, where the market actually perceives him to be. Look, he popped off with 2 wins, but then he kind of settled. And I'm not hearing much talk about him, quite frankly. I think he's sneaking around right now, and as a result, I think I will buy. I don't think I'd pick him to win Worlds, but could I see him have a podium or even really compete for it? Absolutely. So I'm buying Simon.
Yeah, I'm on the buy for Simon as well. Josh, I think you're undervaluing a little bit of how he had performed. The 2 wins was spectacular. His value obviously skyrocketed, but I think it was prior to and just after. I think he had podium finishes. I mean, we were talking about, is he the best player at this point in the world? Maybe not this point, but a few episodes ago.
That's how I feel, but I'm saying in the market. Like, I don't hear anybody talking
at this
about
point,
him right now.
Yeah, at this point, I think it has gone down slowly. You're right, and I think it's a good time to buy. He plays well at DDO. He performed incredible in the wind. I think he got 2nd place this year at DDO. Similar experience. I know Worlds has a different pressure, but I'm buying on Lizotte.
Yeah, he did drop 3 spots in the Statmando power rankings after Ledgestone.
Time to buy.
Time to buy. And I will buy. And I think that when it comes to majors, you have to have a certain degree of maturity, and seeing Simon have a child and grow his game and take a different perspective is exactly the edge that he needs, because he's always had the talent, he's always had the capability, but now he's going to have the perspective and the patience required to slog it out at 5 rounds or a long event at Worlds.
Absolutely. Good point.
Well, and you got to wonder how much of maybe this recent market slump on a Lizotte stock is due to us seeing a lot of European names at the European Open in contention, but most notably, the most popular player out of Europe was not really in the hunt. And so talk about a monkey on the back that you need to work on, but
I laugh because Paul had a social media clip. It was a story or something else where he goes, Simon, the people want to know, why weren't you out in Europe? And Simon's like, funny fact, I was actually in Europe. It was savage.
Paul's on one on social media this year.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Watch out for the hot ones. All right. Eagle McMahon was in Europe. In fact, he won it. In fact, did we even expect him to win it when he had a clipped wing? Sorry, dad joke. Anyway, buy or sell. Dion, starting with you, man.
Yeah, gosh, this is such an intriguing storyline. Eagle playing the select events, resting up for majors, healing for majors. I like that approach. I wish more players had the freedom to take that approach and focus on the major events. That's a great way to approach the season. But I'm going to sell for Eagle. I don't think he can replicate the European Open success in Emporia. Without that forehand, I don't think his lefty's going to cut it. Too much demand on angle control and distance with both hyzer shots.
He's hoping for the forehand to come back at some point. Maybe not by this point. But I'm gonna toss it to Josh. Josh better buy on Eagle because he picked him lower than Ricky a little bit ago in one of our takes, and I feel like he's gonna come out hot. I don't know, Josh. What do you think?
No. Like, yeah, you're interpreting it all wrong.
You're not reading the markets, Matt.
I have to sell, right? Because look, coming off the European Open, he's sky high. Everybody's like, Matt, you earlier asked, like, is he possibly number one in the world?
Right, and you said no.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I'm saying in the market, everybody's asking that question, is Eagle the best? And I'm saying no, he's not. And so I'm selling it right now while I can get a pretty penny and say, I'll let him go down from where he's at.
Just like you did with, I think it was Kristen, you said she is going to win. That's the only way you could pick her to buy. And I'm doing that with Eagle. If he wins, he will be the number one player in the world officially. Right now, people don't know that. And I think his value is low. If Eagle wins, I'm talking actual financial value. If he wins, and he may already be getting $1 million a year. If he wins, his value is going to skyrocket with a world championship. The last major, he's going to be the hottest player out there. I think buying right now is a gamble, but I think it's the right play.
Look, I don't know how much money Eagle makes, but they're already making documentaries about his signature series disc, so he can't be doing too bad out there. All right. There's another guy that's won a major this year. His name is Chris Dickerson. You may know him as the Limestone Laser. He won out at the inaugural Champions Cup. Second major in his career. Matt, right back to you. Are you buying or selling on Chris?
Can I just stay with him as is? Like, it is what it is. I don't know. I feel like he's underperforming, but at the same time, I don't know that we're going to see a better performance coming, at least up to World's point. I think if we're talking the full rest of the season, I think we're going to see him start to increase back. So if that's the case, I'm speaking it out loud in the moment here. I'm going to go, let's buy on him now, because I know he was really high. His market value's come down a little bit. Now's the time to do it. Sure, buy.
See, Matt, I'm sensing the same nerves you're talking about, but I'm not sure the market's responded to it yet. So I think he still is a touch high in the market, honestly. I think he's still valued a bit too high, even right now, even after this poor performance at Ledgestone. And look, of course, Chris does not drop off the map by any means, but you're basically asking me, does he move up or down? And I think the past weekend scares me a little bit more. And so I'm selling right now while there's still plenty of buyers.
Interesting. He is 10th on the power rankings in Statmando. Listen, this dude shows up at the biggest moments, at the biggest events. So I'm buying because it wouldn't shock me at all if he were to take a world title in Emporia, because every time there's something important and big on the line, he comes through.
And earlier this season, I keep referring back to this Emporia, DDO. I think he was quoted, or I've heard him say, like, he didn't feel like he had the right discs in his bag. He was too new to discraft and the wind was too much. I don't know if we're going to have similar wind to that, but I'm sure he's going to be ready.
Ooh. Dion, I'm asking you this. Were you surprised when he won USDGC?
No. He's a complete player. He doesn't even showcase his forehand, and he's got a phenomenal one. And that tells you everything you need to know when his secondary tools are elite and he doesn't even rely on them. So he has all the weapons necessary, and he's just an absolute lights out putter. So didn't surprise me at all.
All right. So then you definitely weren't surprised at Champions Cup. So you wouldn't be surprised at Worlds. I just had to check and see if you were on the Chris Dickerson train from the very beginning. It seems like you were. All right. Another guy who has had a long history in the sport. In fact, check out how many majors he started in over his career. Matty O, next up on the table. Josh Graham, you buying or selling Matt Oram? 35 major starts.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm buying because he's so talented and he's so close. But as a result, I think he flies just below many people's radars, right? Like those who follow it closely certainly know him, but he's just kind of like right there. But then you're always like, wait, how is he on the leaderboard? Or how's he at podium? Like he just kind of hangs in there. And so literally, I'm just saying it's a good value buy because you buy now. And like, would you be surprised if he came in third at Worlds? I would say no, but I don't think anybody's picking him for that.
You could go either way with Matteo, and I'm going to go with sell. It's almost for the exact same reasons with a little different twist on it. Like, I just feel like it's the other way where people are like, he plays so well. I think his value is just kind of there. I don't think we're going to see it drastically go up or down. I think it's a good time to sell.
I've known Matty for a long time, and this might surprise some listeners out there, but his first podium finish at Worlds came in 2005. Wow. The dude's been in this game for a long time. And I go back to my point about maturity. He has what it takes. He's got all the skills. He's as good as a golfer he's ever been, and he's got the maturity needed to win a world title. We've seen that come true for other players like Nate Sexton, Steve Brinster, when they took down USDGCs late in their career. Not saying that Nate's late in his career. I see you, buddy. Keep doing your thing. But I'm going to sell on Matt just because I don't think he's going to have a terrific experience at Worlds. He's had podiums and he's missed cash in his career. So I'm going to sell on his stock, but I think he's, wish him the best, obviously.
We're in the same line there, Dion. I just think his value is just going to stay. Like, I don't see him like drastically going up or down.
I see another top 10.
All right.
Wow. Dion, you threw me for a loop. You went back to 2005 for data to sell. I thought you were buying all the way.
The people need to know the dude's been doing it for a long time.
It's true.
Yeah, he's been rolling Tide for as long as you can think to, and that's the only time you're ever gonna hear me say those words. So let's move on. Gannon Burr, almost the inverse of Matty-O here, didn't even know what disc golf was. He stumbled onto it on accident watching a Brody Smith video. Nevertheless, he's going to playoffs with Drew Gibson. He's 4th in the Statmando power rankings, and he might be the proverbial belle of the ball. Let's start with Dion again.
Yeah, in 2005, Gannon Burr was just becoming a human being for the first time. So I am going to sell, unfortunately, on Gannon. The dude is talented. He's in for a long and amazing career, but he lacks the maturity. There were moments in Ledgestone this past weekend where a few shots trickled OB and he didn't handle it in the way that you would want him to handle. He could have closed the gap. He was the only player I thought capable of catching Ricky. So if he's going to respond that way at Ledgestone, he needs to be able to tighten up to do better at World. So selling.
I agree. And I think what was hard for me is if I think about Gannon's long-term career, as you mentioned, I'm going, man, now would be the time to buy on him because I think his value is going to continue. At the beginning of the season, Jamie, if you remember, I said I picked this guy to win multiple worlds. Like I was all in on him. So like I feel like had I bought back then, I would be happy now even. I think he's performing really well and showing that he's going to have that long career. But when we're going into Worlds at this point in the season, he's really high value. I don't think we're going to see, knock on wood, whatever you want to do. I'm going to be wrong. I don't think we're going to see that at Worlds here this year. So I'm selling on Burr.
I mean, he's been performing very closely when it comes to finishes to what Paul Macbeth has been finishing this season.
Top 10s, yeah.
Even though people are talking about Gannon Burr being amazing, nobody's comparing him to Paul Macbeth, like at this point in time. But like, man, he's on the cusp. I'm not saying the whole brand and the whole like reputation and history, but like current execution is like right there. And I'm going to buy because of it. I know he's perceived pretty high, but I think he still has room to go up, right? And it's obviously an imagination game, but like you said, Matt, it's like, imagine if he wins Worlds, like what, like that's going to be like an explosion in the disc golf world because, I mean, that's just so much young potential, right? Only really going up from there, almost reminiscent of like Eagle coming into the sport and really blowing people away. And Eagle has yet to win a world championship.
And Josh, you brought up Macbeth and you said, you don't know if Gannon's whole brand and everything, you're not comparing all of
Not
that.
yet.
But I go back to remembering seeing Paul Macbeth. There's a time where I can remember before I knew who Paul Macbeth was. And I saw him walking up the fairway of hole 18 at Maple Hill in person. And I said, who's this guy? Longer hair, like he's performing well. And Paul Macbeth, I mean, he had to develop a brand too. I see Gannon as being able to do that. He's young. And Josh, for all those reasons, I would buy as well. But I'm choosing to sell at this point based off of Worlds.
Right.
Players aren't getting as good as quickly as they are for Gannon Burr. Or I should maybe make that more clear. Players like Gannon Burr are getting so good, so fast, it blows my mind.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe the most hyped player who's yet to win an Elite Series event. So stock's going up on Gannon Burr, it seems, according to our panel. Again, buy or sell MPO, put it in the comments below. Let us know what you think. Put your World's picks in there. We've got one more topic to talk about in this extra long version of League Night tonight. Let's get back to the disciplinary process. Good discussion.
Oh, that sounds fun.
All right. The only time talking about discipline is a fun thing is here on League Night. And we're going to revisit this topic because, well, frankly, we had a pre-show meeting and I thought all of your takes were interesting. And I think it's worth talking about because a big interesting part of Nico's suspension is that he cannot participate in any PDGA sanctioned events. Notably, that's not confined to just the tour. That goes down to your local league or your C tier. So he's effectively not practicing his craft for the next 9 months in any competitive way. And it begs the question, how do we react to this? The PDGA has handed down that suspension. As mentioned earlier, not a whole lot of transparency behind it, which has left some people wanting and some people feeling like, well, Nico had it coming, for lack of a better word. So I guess let's just open it up generally. How do we feel about this process and the way that the sentence was handed down?
And I'll say this because I'll get mine out of the way and let others jump in here. I feel like if we're going to be a sport that evolves to the place of where other major sports are, and I know some laugh at that, even the thought of that happening, but if we're going to, things are going to have to change. And I'll say this, my understanding is that Nico is not even aware of all of the information that was used to come up with his discipline. That's my understanding, is the PDGA does not hand him something saying, here's all the information we've obtained and here's why we're granting you this discipline. And just that thought alone to me is enough to say that something needs to change. I'm not saying Nico wasn't interviewed. I'm not saying testimony and witnesses weren't interviewed. Maybe follow up again with Nico. But again, all in all, Nico does not know all the information himself. And whether I agree or disagree with how his actions were or the timeline, that enough to me says there needs to be a process change.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I think just weighing in too on the kind of the general situation here, not just the process. Look, when you hear a debate, which is happening right out there, you have to listen to, of course, the words people have to say, but you also have to consider the context. And so let me just juxtapose these two things, and then I'll close with a comment. So the PDGA, of course, they want to protect the integrity, professionalism, right? Or even, quite frankly, the safety of those playing in events they sanction, right? And so they come out with a disciplinary process and say, here's what we're doing. And then somebody like Paul Macbeth obviously weighs in, and others, right? But his certainly being the biggest name, and from a different lens, right? And of course, he cares about some of the same things, but the PDGA infringing on a legitimate livelihood of a professional player, which they have the right to do. But the point is this is fairly serious business, right? And so somebody like Paul is going to react to that to say, hold on a minute, right? Like before you step in and actually invoke penalties on people with not a lot of transparency, that puts all of us players at risk, right? So even beyond the words that Paul actually says, it's more about like, wait a minute, why would he even have that reaction? And I think that tells us fall all the way back around to Matt's point, give all of us, the players and anybody else who's a stakeholder, more transparency. And in general, I don't think we're here to debate this at length, but consider alternative ways to penalize players, especially at different tiers of the sport. And one last thing, I think maybe this is a rabbit trail, but Paul, in my opinion, has always been very intentional about the words he chooses. And when you actually read what he put out there, at my first gut reaction was, boy, that's a weird take. Like kind of debating, right? Like whether or not the official handled it right or what the response was, or did Nico really do anything as bad? And I actually think, so this is just an opinion, I've got no inside scoop, but that Paul may actually know the words he put in there aren't really all that great, but it kind of proves the point. Without the PDGA giving us more of the story, we're all left, just like Paul, to assume whatever we want to assume about what we interpreted on the screen. You leave us all hanging. And if you're going to leave us hanging, you can't penalize somebody and take away 9 months of their ability to make an income and say, sorry, we don't get to talk about it. And so I think you see that pushback to kind of say, look, Paul can force the conversation forward by even putting something out there that's like, hey, it didn't look that bad. It kind of gets people talking, and the PDGA is probably thinking, wait a minute, Paul, you don't have the whole story. And that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah, if our sport's going to continue to grow, and it is certainly growing and thriving now, and we're seeing more and more money getting injected into the game, and the livelihood of players becoming more sustainable, disc golf as a potential career path. I think it was necessary for the PDGA to discipline Nico and make sure that negative behavior and that negative event was shown to be consequential to him. What I worry about is, are they considering the amount of adaptation that's required by them to become a modern sport? I thought the article on Alta World that compared infractions to consequence showed how in other professional sports, you miss 1 or 2 games, you miss pay, but you're not banned effectively from the sport for the rest of the year or into the remaining year. So I think the PDGA needs to take a slightly more mature lens here and say, okay, if more money is in the sport and more is at stake for these players, it's incumbent on us as the organization who sets the standards and set the rules to increase our own standard of ourselves and accountability for ourselves.
Yeah, and that's a great reference there, Dion, the Ulti-World article by Paul Rokeby Thomas. Fantastic, worth the read. And I think just where I come to this is I agree that, you have to stand your ground at some point and say, hey, look, we're not going to tolerate that these actions happen on the course, especially at a PDGA major. I mean, the PDGA needs to say that we are a relevant organization
Absolutely.
going forward. And so I'm in no way saying that they should not have punished. I think I agree with you guys that the transparency here is where I struggle, because I want to understand why, from my perspective, is the player then punished into the next year. I mean, we just talked this episode about Champions Cup coming back to the same place, potentially in the same month in April. So Nico stands to miss 3 majors and potentially as many as 3 if you look at this year's schedule on the Pro Tour events. Think about how many tour points he's going to be behind all of the competitors in a rapidly increasing field. And how is he going to be able to? He's been an all-star 2 years in a row on the Pro Tour. He's won the USDGC. He's been, for as long as he's been in the game, he has 2 wins on the tour in the last 2 years. This is a big, big punishment. Not to mention his value to sponsors. Now, you can argue that he's damaged it himself, and I'd be inclined to agree, of course. But the chance for redemption when the rules are sort of opaque and up to interpretation, I think that's what Paul's getting at. And I will give Paul some credit that back in 2016, when the PDJ suspended Bradley Williams, Paul took the exact same take. He's been consistent this whole time. Any final thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, well,
Josh,
I'm not Matt, but I'm jumping in.
Does he always do this to you growing up?
Yeah, probably.
Puts my arm behind my back and makes me say uncle, or I mean brother.
Yeah. I mean, I was just reacting to the very last thing. Like, Paul has been consistent that he wants to force the conversation forward. That's what Paul's about, progressing the sport. But Paul has always had an emphasis on benefiting the players, right? Like, that's what he says. That's what he does. And so I really think that's his point. Is, of course, there needs to be a sanctioning body, but like, where is the player's voice in this? Where's the transparency? And I think, him putting that out there, like, he knows what he's doing. And I think he's like, I'm going to kind of stir this up and force the conversation forward. And look, here we are continuing to talk about it.
And he did that. And I also want to throw out there, Nico has filed an appeal. I'm confident that I've seen his social media post that sounds like exactly what he did. I'm sure we'll only hear about it. Well, maybe not. If it's a positive result for him, maybe he'll say something if he feels it's not heard at all. But I do want to say, Josh, I generally agree with your full synopsis of like why Macbeth's doing what he does. But if I am going to nitpick and actually say the post itself that he made and screenshotted and made a lot of funny memes happen in the world of disc golf, I know he's obligated to make that stance, but I think his stance was weak, even how he wrote it. And I know you made a point for why that doesn't matter. And I'm sure an actual conversation with Paul surrounding those things would shed more light on like how he actually feels. But you got to remember, he's doing it again, just like everybody else. And this was your point, based off of only what everybody else saw. The committee saw things differently. And I think that's what you're saying is Paul is trying to say, we all saw the same thing. If there's a bigger reason to suspend as far as you did, we all should know about it, or at least the players should. So I think we agree very, very much so.
Dion, I'm interested in getting your take here as a former touring pro and somebody who has been, specifically been around Nico for a long time. I'm wondering how you would react if you were still competing on tour and you saw something like this handed down, and couple that, with the notion that, just start with that. How would you react if you were still on tour as a player?
Sure, yeah, I've worn a lot of hats in the game. I was touring pro. I've run about a dozen disc golf tournaments myself, so I've been on the organizing side. If an amateur player were to do something like that at an event I was the tournament director at, and his sentence was 9 months suspension, what that would mean is he might not get to play in the local events. And if I was the local TD, that might be an appropriate thing to decide. Hey, you blew up, you need to cool off, you don't get to play in competitive events right now for the next few months. I don't think that's an appropriate sentence for a professional player who travels the world doing this for their income. Nico's a great guy, he's a passionate guy, and he's doing a lot of work on himself and in his apology and the remorse he showed, and I think the time away is going to be all very beneficial for him. But I think the PDGA needs to consider the consequences of the decisions that they're making and understand that they can't make decisions for an amateur player or a disciplinary process that's meant for an entire organization when there's such a broad variety of context there to take into consideration.
Are you in favor, Dion, of like a fine system? Like, I feel like there needs to be something there.
The closest that we could get to is recognizing that the Disc Golf Pro Tour or perhaps majors are as equivalent to a league, right? In football or basketball, that is your premier level events. And if you commit an infraction at that tier of an event, maybe you suffer a consequence in that tier of events. So maybe you can't play the next major, or maybe can't play the next Pro Tour event. But being banned from the sport effectively for
Great
the
point.
remainder of the season, that doesn't seem right.
Great point.
Great points all around. I do think this qualifies as a watershed moment. I don't want to come down. I think the PDJ had to make a stance. I think we all agree on that. And I think this is just another pain point in the growth of this game and trying to figure out how do we bifurcate the pro game from the governing body, which is an amateur-driven organization. And I will say, just in case anybody out there is misinterpreting the stances here, one that I'm a lifetime member of and very proud to support, and they do amazing things for the game, but that doesn't mean that we can't ask for better and try to figure out a way forward. So great discussion on that, guys. Matt, you look like you want to jump in. One more thing.
I was just going to say, I think we're getting ready to lead out maybe with this talking about the Paige Pierce documentary a little bit, but there was some moments in that where it gets a little bit interesting. Speaking about the PDGA, I thought there was a lot of good drama moments in that documentary, and I'm sure you're going to tease it out here a little bit. It's featured here on the DGN, but as just thinking through the PDGA and the growth.
In fact, right you are. That's what I wanted to tell everybody before we get out of here. Thank you for sticking with us through League Night. We're so excited for the rest of this season. We're getting ready for the World Championships in a couple of weeks. And in case you haven't heard, Paige Pierce's documentary Fierce is available. Tickets you can purchase to watch on Disc Golf Network. You don't want to miss this documentary. Even if you have low expectations, I'm telling you, it's going to blow them out of the water. Go check it out. Let us know your thoughts, and we will see you right here on League Night next week. So for Matt, myself, Josh, and Dion, we'll see you next Tuesday.